What happens when a quiet man like Keanu Reeves is mistaken for weak by his neighbors, who push him just a little too far? What begins as nothing more than wet footprints by the pool slowly escalates into a battle of boundaries, gaslighting, and the quiet fury of a man who only ever wanted peace. But by the time they realize who they've been messing with, it's already too late. This isn't the Keanu Reeves you know from Hollywood blockbusters. This is the Keanu who proves that kindness should never be confused with being a pushover. And by the end of this story, you might just find yourself relating to him in ways you never expected. Oh, and before we jump in, let us know where you're watching from. We love seeing the map light up with your comments. The Arizona sun hung low in the sky, dipping lazily behind the arid landscape of Chandler. Golden and crimson hues stretched across the horizon as a dry breeze rustled the palm trees. In the quiet solitude of his backyard, Keanu Reeves, now 60 years old, walked slowly along the edge of his pool. He wore a faded black t-shirt, a pair of well-worn shorts, and sandals that had aged alongside his soul. Every step he took was deliberate. Every movement carried the weight of a man who had learned to cherish peace, not as a luxury, but as a victory. This backyard was his sanctuary. The tall fences, the well-kept garden, the crisp blue water of the pool, it was all a reflection of the life he had fought to protect. A life of silence, solitude, and stability after years of chaos. Especially the pool. It wasn't just a body of water. It was a mirror, reflecting the calm he had spent decades searching for. As he scrubbed the pool's edge with a brush, a sudden wave of gratitude washed over him. Life had been long, intense, filled with dazzling highs and crushing lows. But here, in Chandler, he had finally found what he had always wanted: peace. The neighborhood, however, had changed. The old families, those who understood the unspoken rules of mutual respect, had gradually moved away, replaced by younger couples with loud voices, unruly children, and dogs that roamed free. Keanu tried to adapt, reminding himself that the world moves on. As long as his boundaries were respected, he could live with the change. Then came a Saturday that changed everything. He had just climbed out of the pool when he noticed them. Wet footprints on the ground. Not his. Fresh. Too small to belong to him. They trailed across the yard, leading straight to the fence that separated his property from Karen's. Strange, he murmured, narrowing his eyes. Just a few feet away, a pool floatie lay half-deflated on the grass, completely out of place. He stared at it for a long moment. Maybe it had been the wind. Maybe an animal had dragged it. But deep down, he already knew this wasn't an accident. That night, he double-checked the locks on the gate, activated the alarm. And yet, by morning, he had convinced himself he was overreacting. Maybe it was nothing, he told himself aloud, as if saying it would make it true. That same morning, he met Karen. She appeared on the other side of the fence, cradling a cup of tea in her perfectly manicured hands. She wore one of those sleek workout outfits, designed more for aesthetics than for actual exercise. Her smile was wide, exaggerated, the kind that had been practiced to look friendly. But her eyes? They told a different story. "Well, hello, neighbor. You must be Keanu. I've heard so much about you," she trilled, her laugh high-pitched, almost rehearsed. Keanu offered a polite nod. "Good morning. My kids were absolutely enchanted by your pool yesterday," she continued. "They kept calling it a magic lake next door. You know how kids are." Another laugh, one that carried just a hint of mockery. "Sometimes they get a little carried away. If they made a mess, just let me know, okay?" Keanu remained silent, still processing what she had just said. So, the footprints weren't a coincidence. And now, here she was, smiling, brushing it off, already planting the idea that this was something normal, something he should accept. Then, with a sing-song voice, she added through the slats of the fence, "They're just kids, Keanu." That laugh. Sweet, but laced with something venomous. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He simply stood there, watching the water ripple, feeling the sun shift across the sky and sensing the boundaries he had worked so hard to build being dismissed like they didn't exist. Karen had no idea that this small act of disrespect was just the first drop in what would soon become a tidal wave. The next morning, Keanu sat at the edge of his pool, staring into the water. The laughter from the day before still echoed in his mind. He had spent his entire life avoiding conflict, choosing silence over confrontation. Not because he was weak, but because he valued peace more than winning. But peace, he was beginning to realize, only exists when it is honored. That afternoon, he decided to speak with Karen. She was outside, watering a row of flowers, her movements slow, deliberate, as if she were constantly aware of being watched. "Hi again," she called out before he could even speak, her voice light, amused. Keanu stood by the fence, hands in his pockets, his voice calm but firm. "Karen, I need to talk to you about yesterday." "Oh, I know," she interrupted, turning to face him with a wide grin. "The boys can be a little wild sometimes, but honestly, Keanu, they're just kids. And you're always in there all alone. I figured it might be nice for you to hear some laughter for a change."
His jaw tightened.
"They jumped into my pool without permission." She tilted her head, eyes sparkling with amusement. "But they didn't break anything, right? Come on, don't be that neighbor." Something shifted inside him. It wasn't anger.
Not yet.
It was something worse. She wasn't apologizing. She was gaslighting him. Respecting someone's space isn't optional. Karen let out a soft chuckle, like a teacher humoring a naive student. "Keanu, no offense, but you've got this gorgeous pool and you never even use it. What's the harm in a few kids having fun for an hour?" He didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. And that's when things escalated. By the following week, the invasions became bolder. The kids came in groups now, 4, 5, sometimes 6 at a time. They splashed, screamed, tossed garbage onto the lawn. One day, Keanu found his pool skimmer snapped in half. Another day, the garden hose had been used to flood the inside of a shed. Still, he remained calm. He reinforced the gate, added a new lock. But it didn't stop. Because this wasn't just about kids. This was lawlessness. When he tried speaking with the neighbors, most shrugged. "That's just Karen," one said. "She's confident." Another, a beer-bellied man in his 40s, simply laughed. "Come on, man. You're a big star. Take it as a compliment." That evening, Keanu walked home with a heavy heart. It wasn't anger he felt. It was something deeper. A kind of moral loneliness, the crushing weight of realizing that everyone around him had decided that this was normal. That night, he made a decision. He ordered high-definition security cameras. Motion-activated. Night vision. Wide-angle lenses. If words wouldn't be believed, then maybe footage would. And soon those cameras would capture something that would change everything.